Hi guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the responses to all of the child abuse. They went out of their way to protect my brother. They hired a psychologist for her that would work underneath the table. They paid him underneath the table. I still have his name, and they currently have let him know that he's a part of the lawsuit that just recently happened. So he counseled her for a couple of years, I think. They paid him, again, underneath the table. He took on her case and didn't report any of it to the police. Never said a word to anybody. I believe he was a Jehovah's Witness at the time. Either that or he was known as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the people that would take Jehovah's Witnesses on without saying anything. Anyway, so they paid him. They also paid for all of the co-pays for, I believe it was a year. It may have been 2 for victim number 2. And everything appeared at that time to be settled. Victim number 3 never got any justice at all. She actually became homeless and is currently in downtown Portland. I've seen her a couple of times, I think, but I don't know for sure. So they went to Great Lakes to protect him. We moved halls from Sandy East to Sandy West, and then from Sandy West over to Estacada. At that point, you know, the abuse continued, and I never really sought justice or anything like that. I had thought that everything was reported and everything was taken care of. That was the assumption. I approached the elders at one point and had asked them to help me approach my parents because I wanted to date. I was 18 or so at the time, and the elders said that I needed to wait on Jehovah, even though I was a pioneer at the time, and I really loved, you know, going out there and spreading the news, and but the possibility of me ever finding a relationship within Jehovah's organization was almost impossible. I was in a little town. Estacada is not very big. It's a very small congregation. It's known around the area as Incestacada, if that gives you any idea of the little hick town that it could potentially be. And nobody would go out there looking for a wife. That was the first strike. The second strike is I was an obese sister. Nobody really wanted to even look at me twice because, well, very frankly, who wanted a fat sister to go out in service with, let alone be married to? It was such a negative view in the organization. Obese women were just horribly, horribly treated. They were a second-class citizen of the second-class citizens, so I don't know how else to describe it. So I continued working, just out in field service, working full-time, continued to take care of myself and my family. And at about 2001, there was a gentleman that came into my work at that time. Seemed really, really nice, very, he was so attractive, oh my gosh, I thought I was in chump heaven. So, I found out a little bit later that he was studying, he was pursuing baptism, and I thought I had hit jackpot. We met right around spring break, and by September 1st, we were married. Didn't meet my family, didn't care to know my family. And my family always was like, what in the heck did he not want to meet your family for? So, the day that we were married, my parents actually reported me to the elders. So after my brother had sexually assaulted 3 people, they didn't even go to the elders. They didn't want the elders to know. They didn't want the elders involved. But me marrying, because he wasn't baptized, he was outside of the religion, me marrying somebody outside of the religion, they automatically took to the elders. No elders called me, no elders looked in on me, no elders questioned anything. But then they automatically disfellowshipped me for marrying outside the religion. So the sin of marrying outside the religion was a bigger sin than pedophilia. And I have yet to understand the reason why that is. I have no idea. So 2 years into the relationship, 7 restraining orders later, he dragged me down the road and he took off with my oldest child. My oldest child was at that time medically fragile. She was having seizures and nobody understood why it was happening. Nobody understood. And I was all alone. I had no friends, no community, no family. I literally had nothing. I was all freaking alone in the world. Wasn't on Facebook because I don't think Facebook was created back then. I had no community. I was 100% alone. And not only was I alone, I was with somebody who would take joy out of hurting me. Miscarriages, doors slammed on my hands, this list of assaults that he would do to my body would go on and on and on. I had 1 miscarriage. I had lost the baby at about 20 weeks because he chose to back the car into me. He set the house on fire and left my oldest daughter in there. She was rescued by his girlfriend at the time. So there's a part of me that's grateful that his girlfriend decided to stalk him and come by, because that way at least my daughter was safe. But he took off with her and was headed to California to file paperwork, listing himself as the sole custody of her. He dragged me down the road. And at that time, I went back to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I need a place to stay. I have a medically fragile daughter. I need to get back up on my feet again. Please, can I stay here, even if it's just for a short time? Just so that I can figure out what I need to do next. And at that point, it was just me and my oldest daughter coming back into the house, or wanting to come back into the house. Looking back, I'm grateful because I did not want my daughter to be subjected to my older brother to sexually assault her. So that part I'm grateful for. However, at the time, I had nowhere to go. My daughter and I slept in our car because my parents told me that the house was too full for them to accept anybody back in. So they were accepting of the pedophilia, but not accepting of me. And there was a lot of slaying that hurt. It hurt really bad. So we slept out of our car for a couple of weeks. Just trying to make it. make it through with Becky. She was still having seizures, and we just kind of figured out how things worked, and we worked the plan. And at that point, I was able to get into a shelter, a domestic violence shelter, and I started rebuilding my life. It has been a long process to where I'm at right now. My parents, I've had zero support from them. They've seen my oldest, well, and even my youngest now, a total of maybe 6 or 7 times. Very frigid to her. So this last September, I met with my brother finally. My brother had gotten married, the one that I had raised, and he's had a total now of 3 kids, and I have not met his wife or seen any one of his kids. And I was finally able to corner him because he never told me why he wouldn't talk to me anymore. He never told me what was going on. And even though my parents were distant, they never really truly were, like, completely uncommunicative. I could call them and they would have very stilted responses, but they would still respond. It was like yes, no type of questions. Other than that, they wouldn't respond to me at all. So, anyway, long story short, I finally was able to get my little brother cornered enough that he could tell me what exactly I did wrong, that he wouldn't let me talk to his wife or his kids or meet them or anything. And he said, "Liz, I saw you celebrate Christmas once, and you have utterly destroyed this family, and you have turned your back on absolutely everything that meant anything to this family." And I was sitting there in utter shock, like utter shock. Me celebrating Christmas and me marrying somebody was that big of a deal, and the pedophilia was nothing. It didn't destroy our family, but me marrying outside the religion did. So I told him, I said, "Nathan, you know, there is much more to this story than you will ever know." I pointed to my dad, and I started telling him of some of the stories that my dad did, and my dad didn't respond. My dad didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say anything as to, like, even like a parent would, like, "Oh my gosh, Liz, I am so sorry. You know, God, that breaks me. I didn't mean to." Nothing like that. Nothing. He had absolutely no response at all. And then I said, "And Joshua sexually assaulted me from the time I can remember." I told him my first memory is him shagging me right behind the garbage can at the foot of my parents' bed. And he turned around. Joshua came up to me and turned around and told me that I sexually assaulted him in the bathtub at 3 years old. And that's what started his whole lifetime of pedophilia, was because I touched him at 3, and I was being provocative at 3 years old. I'm not even sure a child knows at 3 years old what provocative is, let alone how to demonstrate it on another child. Number 1. Number 2, he was 6, maybe 7 at the time. And it was my fault because I was being provocative and I touched him. That doesn't make any sense. You know, great, you're right. I was wrong for touching him at 3. I have absolutely zero memory of that. Why were we unsupervised in a bathtub at 3 years old? Did I know the difference between wrong touch and right touch at that time? I have no idea. But to blame a 3-year-old for the whole series of abuses up to the age of 17, what are you thinking? It really made me angry. So Nathan was told that all of these things were apostate-driven lies. That my whole experience in life was apostate-driven lies. My scars were apostate-driven lies. The abuses that I suffered from my family was apostate-driven lies. I was in utter shock. Absolutely 100% utter shock that my family blamed me for breaking up the whole entire family because of my apostate-driven lies. So at this point, I haven't seen my family. And then at about Thanksgiving, my aunt approaches me and says, "Hey, did you know that Nathan moved back in with the family?" No, I didn't. They invited him and his family of 5 after he up and randomly quit his job to move back in with the family. The pedophilia. 3 kids under the age of 5 were now in with my oldest brother. So I called CPS. I said, "Nope, this isn't going to happen. Not to these kids. Nope, 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 nope." And so that led to the arrest on February 13th of Joshua. My assaults are too old to prosecute. The statute of limitations ran out when I was 30. But the one victim is still just turned 30 this last February, so she was able to press charges. My dad is free and clear of anything that he has ever done to me. But that's where we stand right now. Joshua is finally in jail. Well, he's finally arrested. They bailed him out within a couple of hours. The bail was set at $250,000. So they had to come up in the state of Oregon with $25,000. But he is currently out of jail and awaiting arraignment. So that's where we've left it. They've not spent one day outside of Jehovah's organization. They've never been disfellowshipped. They've never been disciplined. In fact, my brother Joshua is an elder, or was an elder. I don't know if he is currently. And my dad is also an elder. So yeah, that's how my story has gone, and that's where it's kind of been left. I'll keep you guys updated on just about everything that I can. I can't do much more now other than he is being arraigned sometime here in March, and I don't know the date. But that's kind of my story, and that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that it's much more than children being abused, or not missing, or it's much more than children missing Christmas and not standing up for the flag, or missing birthdays. Abuse happens, guys, every single day, and that's why I am so passionate about making sure that people know that these are not apostate-driven lives. These are real people that have been affected.